What's up, everybody? Tonight, we are going to break down Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's sentencing. They ask for an insane amount of leniency, which is only insane because of the fact that she's been convicted of this and somebody lost their life and how hard the prosecution went against her. But is it that crazy? Is it that insane for what she was actually charged with and convicted of? We're going to break that down. We're going to kind of recap some of the victim impact statements. We're going to listen to the state's argument. We're going to listen to the defense's argument. We're going to hear from the defendant herself. Does she show remorse? Does she check the boxes to get a more lenient sentence? We're going to watch that. And then most importantly, we're going to see what does the judge decide and why does she decide it? Because she absolutely tells us why she makes the decision she did. We're going to react to all that, answer all your questions on tonight's video. Thank you so much for being here, because you could be anywhere and you're here. All right. We are here and ready to watch this sentencing. We're going to show about 3 clips. We're going to show the state's argument first. We're going to show Joel Souza as he talks about Helena Hutchins and himself and kind of how it's affected him. We'll recap and discuss friends and family members. They did a slideshow of Helena Hutchins. It was all extremely sad and extremely difficult, and a reminder that someone lost their life. Was this accidental? Yes. But the conduct was so bad and somebody lost their life, and the maximum sentence of 18 months is really not that much. So that's why the state ends up pushing for that. And what's really interesting is the state tells us they weren't sure what they were going to ask for until they heard something post-trial that helped solidify their position.
Let's get the microphone on. Your Honor, I wasn't sure exactly what recommendation would be appropriate in this unprecedented case until last week, when I completed the review of Ms. Gutierrez's jail calls.
So post-trial, she listened to her jail calls. Patrick asked, have they been released? I have not seen them. If you guys see them, please send them to me. I want to break them down. I have heard that she goes off on the prosecutor, calling the jurors a bunch of idiots, on the judge, all the things you don't want to do. And we just saw in a very similar case, and listen, I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't understand why these criminal defendants like the Crumbleys and Hannah Gutierrez are angry. They don't feel like they intentionally hurt anybody. And yet they're on the hook. They're criminally charged, convicted, and now being punished for it. But guess what? There are crimes that fit with the facts that they were convicted of. And a jury of their peers listened to the evidence and convicted them. So to say those types of things on recorded phone calls, you get what you deserve if it gets worse for you because of that. Show some restraint and respect. Say, I disagree with the jury. We're going to appeal. Calling them idiots doesn't help you. I understand you may be mad. I understand that. But saying it on recorded phone calls, especially before you're sentencing, especially when you're only looking at 18 months, if she could have got a suspended sentence or, 10 months in county or even 12 months in county or some lower sentence, she could have gone off on everybody afterwards. But to do it now shows some really bad decision-making on her part. And her lawyer should have warned her about this. And again, I don't want to bring it back to Ruby Franke, but at least she said all the right things. Amber said, anyone else notice the guy in the background with the dark curly hair, a hat, and a headset on, looking at the screen on the left? So I don't see him in this picture, but we'll try to keep an eye out for that, Amber. Mercedes, welcome to your first ever Lawyer You Know live. Chat give her a nice, warm welcome. Everybody that's here, hit that like button if you haven't already, and make sure that you subscribe to our channel. All right, so people said Emily has a copy of the jail calls. I'll have to take a look at them. I heard there were hours of them, and we don't do hours and hours on this channel. Tonight's video will be 45 minutes to 1 hour max. So if I get them, I will listen to them and clip out the parts I think would be most interesting to listen to. So the prosecutor didn't know what she was going to ask for, finished listening to the jail calls. So what does she end up asking for?
It was my sincere hope during this process that there would be some moment when Ms. Gutierrez took responsibility, expressed some level of remorse that was genuine.
Do we really think that if she would have seen a jail call where Hannah Gutierrez accepted responsibility or showed remorse, that she would be saying, well, since she showed remorse, we're going to ask for a lesser sentence? I don't know, maybe, but I find it hard to believe.
And that moment has never come. Ms. Gutierrez continues to refuse to accept responsibility for her role in the death of Halyna Hutchins. Rather than accept responsibility, she has chosen to place blame on the witnesses who testified against her. Me, you, the jurors, the set medic, and the paramedics who tried to save Ms. Hutchins' life. Her jail calls, and there were probably close to 200 of them, tell us who Ms. Gutierrez really is. And in the state's opinion, the content and tone of her calls demonstrates that Ms. Gutierrez should not receive any type of a reduced sentence. Halyna Hutchins died due to a cascade of safety violations that began with Ms. Gutierrez introducing live rounds to the movie set, loading one into a prop gun, telling the members of the crew that it was a cold gun, thereby ensuring that it would make its way into the hands of Mr. Baldwin. That conduct.
Also important for the prosecutor to say that there was a slew of problems, negligence all around, poor set, all of that, because she is obviously, David Halls has taken a plea deal and she is continuing to prosecute Alec Baldwin.
Absent responsibility or remorse is deserving of a sentence of 18 months in the Department of Corrections with a designation as a serious violent offender. And that is what the state will be requesting today. And those are the only arguments I intend to make in terms of sentencing. I would like to move into the presentation of the witnesses who would like to address the court on behalf of Ms. Hutchins and her family. I would like to start with Craig Mizrahi. Mr. Mizrahi.
All right, so we're going to jump ahead a little bit. So, I mean, it was really sad to think about and hear all of the things Halyna Hutchins is never going to do with her family. It's an incredibly, incredibly sad situation here where because of someone's carelessness and recklessness and negligence, it's really difficult and it's really sad to hear the fallout of the mistakes that were made on this set. Amy Z said the fact that she will only be in prison for 18 months, but the Crumbly parents for 10 to 15 years is wild. It is wild state to state how different it is. But again, jurisdictionally speaking and venue and where something happens, that's the ruling law of the land. And it does seem really unfair. But that's the criminal justice system. And that's how it works. State to state. We're 50 United States. We have individual laws and rules per state. Federally speaking, in federal court in each state, the sentence would be the same. Here's Joel Souza.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I would like to thank the court as well as Ms. Morrissey and her team for allowing me to speak today. Struggled with what to say here today because what I want is simply not possible. I want that none of this ever happened, that everyone's okay and that lives weren't destroyed, and that worst of all, his life wasn't lost. I would not presume to speak for Halyna, nor for her husband or her son, for her parents or her sister, but I would like to say something on their behalf if I might. Halyna's parents lost their daughter. Her sister lost a sibling and confidant. Matt lost his wife, the other half of himself. And Halyna's son lost not only his mother, but everything she had to offer him for the rest of her life. Every kind word, every loving gesture, every support, every influence, every life's lesson. The course of his life has been irrevocably altered, and the world lost not only a person who was a gifted artist, but a truly kind and compassionate person, which often seem to be in short supply these days. As for myself, the last 2.5 years are difficult to put into words. What it's done to me and the burdens it's placed on me, both emotionally and physically, are my private burdens, and I think I'll choose to keep them that way today. What I will say is that one moment the world made sense, and the next moment it didn't, and it still doesn't, and I don't know if it ever will again. So again, what I really want, I can't have. I want everyone damaged by Miss Reed's failures that day to find peace. I want this whole thing not to have been consumed by the world as some sick form of mass entertainment. I want to still believe in the better angels of our nature. I want the pain to go away. I want to be who I was before this happened, and above all, I want Helena to be back home with her husband and son in the house she never got to live in. Helena not only had an incredible talent for her art, but she had a talent for life. She was a touchstone for all who knew her, and those of us who were lucky enough to have shared in her fleeting time on this planet are better for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, now we're going to jump ahead a little bit to the judge's comments. Maria said she told her mom that the prosecutor has to use the public bathroom, so maybe her mom could confront her. They were threatening the prosecutor. Amber said, bro, it's the plant. Talking about this plant? You think that looks like a person? It looks like a dude with a headset and purple sweatshirt on in your background. I don't know. Maybe it looks different on camera. It doesn't look anything like that to me. Sandra, did Hannah know her calls are recorded? So it always says it in the beginning of a jail call that they are recorded. So it's pretty tough to miss the fact that they are recorded. Love, thank you for spreading the love here and gifting 20 Lawyer You Know memberships. That's awesome. 133. Let's jump ahead here now to the judge's comments. So let's figure out. So she talks about what her decision is. I'm sorry. Before we get to the judge's comments, it's the defendant's comment. So we get to hear from the defense lawyer and the defendant basically begging for mercy, explaining why the judge should give her less time. And the judge goes through basically what her options are, what she is choosing between, and then eventually what she chooses to sentence her with. It's in her discretion to make this decision. And we'll talk about Katie Kloss has a question. I'll bring it up when we get to the sentencing, and we'll break down exactly how it's going to play out, what she's actually going to serve, and where she's going to serve it.
To the court.
First and foremost, my heart aches for the Hutchins family and friends and colleagues as well. And it has since the day this tragedy occurred. Helena has been and always will be an inspiration to me. I understand she was taken too soon, and I pray that you all find peace. I am beyond grateful that Joel survived that terrible day. My heart goes out to the film industry for the devastating pain that this tragedy caused and the old wounds that have been reopened. I am saddened by the way the media sensationalized our traumatic tragedy and portrayed me as a complete monster.
So, again, she is making remarks like the media has sensationalized this. Have they? Sure. But turned her into a monster. I mean, I haven't really heard many people say she's a monster personally, but that does show that she is still blaming other people and not saying, I think you can still, in this situation especially, you can say, I wasn't perfect. I made some mistakes. I don't feel like I committed crimes, but I absolutely did not do enough to prevent this from happening. And it kills me to think that someone's life was lost because of it. There are ways for you to still maintain your innocence, but admit that you did something wrong here and that it was civil negligence and not criminal negligence, but you still feel bad for it and still apologize for your part. I mean, there was so much negligence on her part.
Which has actually been the total opposite of what's been in my heart. Your Honor, when I took on Rust, I was young and I was naive, but I took my job as seriously as I knew how to. Despite not having proper time, resources, and staffing, when things got tough, I just did my best to handle it.
Despite not having time, training, resources, and staffing, or whatever she said, again, blaming other people. Susan said, I felt like it was a celebration of life. Yes, I agree with you for Helena Hutchins. I felt the same exact way. I wonder if the same impact statements will be given at Alex's trial. Thanks, Peter. Well, some of them were recorded and written statements from her family. So I feel like that could be replicated pretty easily. The live testimony, they would have to do again, but I think it'll be similar. I do think it will be similar. Vicky with a Y, I'm sad for myself. It does seem like that's kind of what she was going with here.
Today, I humbly ask you to consider probation, a probation where I can contribute to society through community service, and I can continue my counseling, and I welcome any classes that you may deem necessary for me to attend. I give you my word now that I would strictly follow the rules and respect the parameters of that probation. I beg you, please don't give me more time. The jury has found me in part at fault for this god-awful tragedy, but that doesn't make me a monster. That makes me human. Thank you.
This jury has found me partially at fault. That doesn't make me a monster. It makes me a human. I'm not sure what that means exactly. Amy said, do the attorneys advise as to the statement? So many people making it about themselves. So yes, we talk through a statement. Sometimes clients will run the statement by us. Sometimes they'll ask if they should make a statement or not, what they should put in it. Sometimes we don't write it for them usually. We'll give them parameters like, here is what makes a lesser sentence: acceptance of responsibility, showing that you're working on yourself, rehabilitate yourself, that you can be a contributing member of society. There are things that, talk about your background, how you've never committed any other crimes before. So like that type of stuff, we'll give them the parameters about what works well for a statement like this. But at the end of the day, they still write them and they still speak from the heart sometimes when we get to this point. Bev, is it normal for defendants to wear handcuffs in court? Yes, in this situation, because she has been convicted and is in jail right now. She's in custody. Hysterical chaos. What good are classes without accountability? Well, from her perspective, she's thinking if I take a few classes, check a few boxes, maybe I can get out of here and be done. That's what it feels like. Tom, Peter, off topic. I'm in and out. I support all Iowa sports since the 80s. Go Caitlin Clark, first pick, and thrilled Angel Reese was drafted by Chicago. WNBA games for me in Chicago with the CC Angel again. Wow. Sorry for the interruption. Yes, the WNBA draft is tonight. I don't know what pick Angel Reese went. They projected her to go 6'7", something like that. But yeah, everybody knew Caitlin Clark, the Golden Girl, was going 1 overall. Congrats, Tom.
Thank you.
Again, and I believe Del Reed would like to speak to the court this time.
Thank you, Your
So
Honor.
this is her dad making a quick statement.
Brief statement. It's a horrible tragedy for that wonderful lady to lose her life. Also be a tragedy to put my daughter Hannah in the penitentiary for that. It's alleged she introduced live ammunition on the set. That's not true. Why would she? The two people responsible for whatever came on the set are the vendor and the property manager who had to work for her. On that terrible day, they had Hannah off the set doing prop duties, and she asked him, please bring her back on when Mr. Baldwin comes so he could do a final check on the gun and its instructions. They did not do that. If they had it, this horrible day would not happen. Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the court.
Thank you.
So that sounds like trial testimony and something he could have testified to at trial and didn't at the decision of the defense. And I don't think it's going to do much in sentencing because, again, the jury has already factually disagreed with him. And again, it's really hard, especially in these cases where we can see both sides and we don't know how a jury is going to come down. And then when they do, that is the legal fact now. And we have to live in a world where that is the legal fact, right? And it's really hard for people to come to grips with that, but that's where we are. And because it's a legal fact, that statement really does nothing legally when it comes to her sentence. The helpful stranger said, as an autistic person, it saddens me because normal people don't realize how little control you all truly have when emotions are involved. Can be angry, but if you were like me and saw what I see, you'd have pity.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just briefly, Judge, I've made most of my arguments in the written pleadings. And Judge, it's nobody in this courtroom could not be moved by what we just saw. The family, Helena's family, her friends, it was a horrible tragedy. There's no doubt about that. And it's a tragedy for everybody. There were a number of lives changed, lost that day. Her friends talked about that. And that includes Ms. Gutierrez. I just want the court to know primarily that she has felt remorse. And maybe I've talked to her as much as anybody, at least on the legal side, Ms. Cisneros. She's cried. She's broken down. She's had mental breakdowns. She said, if only, many, many, many times.
I mean, crying and having mental breakdowns in prison is probably a normal feeling. It is a normal feeling. But I get what he's trying to say. And the difficult part is once you make statements yourself as the criminal defendant, it's hard for your lawyer to come in and really say anything different and try to make it sound better and try to make you sound more like you're feeling sorry or you have remorse. It's very difficult because she just made her statement herself. And the judge can judge based on the defendant's statement if she accepts responsibility, if she feels remorse, if she's rehabilitated, if she's really working hard on herself. And to me, you as the lawyer coming and saying that she is, after the judge just got to make her own judgment call on what the defendant said, is not the most helpful argument. I would stick to, prior criminal history, her age. I would stick to those types of things, the legal arguments.
And it hasn't come out. It hasn't come out until today because of the legal proceedings and the system we have. But she has truly felt remorse, and I will tell the court that. As an officer of the court, that she has indicated that to me. This court has seen jail calls she's made.
Makes a good point there. Because she has an appeal, she can't get up here and say, yeah, I did it, sorry. How about a simple, I'm very sorry for the part my actions played in this tragedy. Yeah, I think you can even say something like, while maintaining my innocence, I'm sorry for any part I played in this tragedy. If only crossed my mind so many times. Like her lawyer said, I think it would have been better coming from Hannah, personally. Yeah, Wendy said her phone calls tell a different story. Yeah. And I'd be interested to see more of them. I've only seen kind of like reports about what she was saying, but it didn't sound good. And it definitely had an impact on her sentence.
I would submit to this court that you could probably survey 100 people after something like this happens, including everybody that participated in the trial, scrutinize all of our calls, and pick out something bad that one of us said. Because, Your Honor, none of us are what we are on our best day, nor are we what we are on our worst day. And as Ms. Gutierrez said, she's human. She's flawed, just like everybody else in this courtroom. We asked this court to consider fairness in respect that this was a cascade of tragedy. As some of the speakers indicated, there were multiple system failures by multiple people. Some of those people have come before the court, as this court knows, and received 6-month misdemeanor probation. Some have not been punished. Some have yet to come before the court. At least one individual is going to be tried
Alec Baldwin
in July. And so I know this court has the responsibility to weigh all of that and to determine what is commensurate and fair, as one speaker said, for Ms. Gutierrez. And what does that mean in the scope of things and what has come before this court? And I'm asking the court to consider that. And also what probation might do for her in terms of rehabilitation, which is another goal of our system.
He's like, yeah. Okay.
Anything else?
No, you're good.
All right, so I've made some notes along the.
All right. So here is the sentence. Bev said, do you think it would have made a difference in sentencing if Hannah had displayed these emotions during trial? I don't think her emotions are really like crushing it for her right now. It doesn't seem like she's overly emotional. I don't know. It's hard to say what would affect it. I think a better statement could have done well for her, but most importantly, I think not having those jail calls would have been potentially the most important factor here. Won't her sentence be done before the appeal? Very likely it could be. But we'll wait till we hear the sentence to really dig into that. Devin's Law, what's up, man? Her dad probably didn't have firsthand knowledge of what he said, hence why he had to give it at sentencing, which unfortunately made it pointless. So I think Based on the testimony in this case, he could have very easily be qualified as an expert and talk about how an armorer would never bring live rounds on set, why they would never bring live rounds on set. I think he could testify that he never gave her live rounds. He was brought up in the trial multiple times. She texted him for a picture of the box. She took ammo from him. He's the one who taught her. He could talk about how he taught. I think he could have added something to the trial. I thought it would have been really interesting to hear him testify personally, but maybe not specifically like he testified here. Maybe you're right about that. Dawn said, Peter, she's in jail right now, right? Prison will be worse. So for the most part, prison is worse, but there are some county jails that are absolutely horrible and sometimes worse than prison. So it really depends on the jurisdiction in the area, but usually prison is worse than jail.
Way. So if I refer to the notes and I'm not looking at tables, it's because I'm reading. First of all, thank you for your presentations. Thank the friends and family of Helena for presenting their memories and their losses of Helena. There are really three choices for sentencing before me. What the defense wants is a conditional discharge. This means straight probation, unless Ms. Gutierrez comes back on a probation violation. She won't have a felony conviction on her record, so she can continue to possess firearms. Again, unless she comes back on a probation violation and receives the imposition of the
I'm going
probated
to back
sentence.
this up again, just so we can focus in on, here's the judge's decision. So if you're wondering what the judge is deciding between, here it is. And Katie, could you please talk a little bit more about the designation as a serious violent offender? Thanks. Yes. Harsher penalties, less time off for good time served in jail. So she'll be serving 85%, but we'll kind of listen here a little bit more to what the judge has to decide, because this comes into play in the judge's decision.
All right, so I've made some notes along the way. So if I refer to the notes and I'm not looking at tables, it's because I'm reading. First of all, thank you for your presentations. Thank the friends and family of Helena for presenting their memories and their losses of Helena. There are really three choices for sentencing before me. What the defense wants is a conditional discharge. This means straight probation, unless Ms. Gutierrez comes back on a probation violation.
So the defense wants her to just go out on probation with restrictions. And if she violates those restrictions, whether it's an ankle monitor, whether it's classes, community service, fines that she has to pay, whatever it may be, you go out, you serve your probation, and then
she won't have a felony conviction on her record, so she can continue to possess firearms.
Don't have a felony conviction on your record, you can continue to possess firearms.
Again, unless she comes back on a probation violation and receives the imposition of the probated sentence. The second one has not been offered by counsel, but I've certainly thought of it, and it's to continue her in the Santa Fe County Detention Center. That would be for 12 months. That's all she's allowed to stay at the detention center.
So jail is 364 days or 12 months max. So if they keep her there, she only goes 12 months and she goes out. And actually, sometimes they do this. We've actually had this happen on a case where the sentence was not long enough to have them transferred out to the prison and then transfer back and have them go in and out and all the paperwork and time. So they just left them in county and they ended up getting less time. So what she's saying is, if she wants to just keep her in jail 12 months, so she's already been in like a month, so it'll be 11 more months and then she'd be out and then she'd potentially have some probation after that. So that's one of the things that she is considering.
And then put her on probation for the rest of the time. She's facing 18 months. She's got pre-sentence confinement for about a month or so. In this scenario, she won't experience prison. She will be a convicted felon. She cannot carry a firearm under federal law and for a specific time under New Mexico law. And then there's prison. And the state has proposed at 85% of the time sentenced to incarceration based on the serious violent offense statute.
So that serious violent offense statute makes you serve 85%.
For all the fanfare and pundits and finger pointing that has been going on for over 2 years, we were able to seat a jury of her peers who confirmed that they could listen to the evidence received in court and determine the facts and apply the law. They found Ms. Gutierrez guilty of involuntary manslaughter.
So she hammers her first for finger pointing. Bodie, you know what? Serious violent offense. I do think that this is literally making an example out of her, because her acts, it's hard for me to, in my head, determine that her acts were seriously violent. Now, the offense of involuntary manslaughter and accidental killing is seriously violent, obviously, because somebody died. So I get it, and it's focused on the offense, not her actions, but it is a little bit odd. It is a little bit odd. Jocelyn, thank you so much for gifting 10 Lawyer You Know memberships. That's awesome.
What were some of the poignant facts that came out during the trial? In her police interview, she proudly owned her position as armorer. On October 21st, 2021, chaos ended after the film crew walked off. Ms. Hutchins and others were trying to rig, if you will, how they were going to keep filming. And what was the defendant doing while waiting? She was loading Alec Baldwin's gun. Did she have enough time to load the weapon safely? Plenty. Did she load the weapon? Yes. With dummies and a live round. Did she check what she was loading? No. Why? Well, in her own words, most recently, in her jailhouse calls, she didn't need to be shaking the dummies all the time.
So somebody asked if the judge heard the jailhouse calls. My guess is yes, after that. And the state could have added them as an exhibit for sentencing. And she even said there, I don't need to be shaking them all the time. But the judge said, you had plenty of time. You loaded Alec Baldwin's gun with dummies and a live round. You didn't check it appropriately. Period. End of story. Criminal negligence in the judge's mind and obviously the jury's.
Did she check after that? No. And while you've heard her concerns about how she'll never work again as an armorer leading up to the trial, have her concerns changed? No. Here's what she says. This whole thing has been a character attack on her. Just recently in her allocution, I'm not a monster. And what did, where is it? They talk about how much of, on the phone, she and another are talking about how much of Hannah's life that they could take up and that this is messing up her modeling career. This is while she's in.
That was they're messing with her modeling career. And again, the reason this is so brutal to hear on the jail calls, I mean, obviously it's bad to hear. You don't want to hear it. It's rude. It's unfortunate. But like Helena Hutchins will never do anything again. Her son will never have a mom again because of Hannah Gutierrez's negligence, according to the jury. So to say you're worried about your armorer career or your modeling career for 12 to 18 months is really tone deaf. It's really tone deaf. Now, this sucks. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't want to go to prison for 18 months, but your life is not over. Her life is absolutely not over.
Incarcerated, waiting for a sentence. Could take up, and that this is messing up her modeling career. This is while she's incarcerated, waiting for a sentence. And what does she say about the death of Helena? Hannah is dismissive of the judge talking about someone dying as a result of her actions. Hannah says she's looking at 13 months, which is ridiculous over what happened. Hannah says that people have accidents and people die. It's an unfortunate part of life, but it does.
13 months is ridiculous. I wonder what she thinks about the Crumblies. And then there are accidents and people die. I mean, that's in the situation that you're in. Now, if you're trying to get over something and you're dealing with, a car accident where a loved one passed and you're trying to like deal with it, it's like bad things happen to good people. That's one way to have these discussions. But to be the one that made the reckless decision and the careless behavior that ended in the death, and to say accidents happen and people die is brutal. It's just absolutely brutal.
Hannah says she's looking at 13 months, which is ridiculous over what happened. Hannah says that people have accidents and people die. It's an unfortunate part of life, but it doesn't mean she should be in jail. A conditional discharge is not appropriate.
So that's what the judge thinks about that. A conditional discharge is not appropriate. It is confirmed here that Hannah Gutierrez is not getting what she asked for. Lisa said, Peter, you're the best. Thanks. Do you know if the prosecutors made the slideshow of Helena Pink Floyd song? I thought it was odd, but agree with the verdict and sentence. I did think it was a little bit odd, but ever to each their own. My guess is that was either made by the family or with some input of the family. That's usually how it's done from the prosecution side. I'm not exactly positive how it worked in this case, though.
And the second option of leaving you in the detention center would be giving you a pass you do not deserve.
So giving her 12 months in county jail and then 6 months of probation would be giving her a pass that she does not deserve. I mean, that's 12 months for this charge and this conviction. I hardly feel like is a pass. Hardly. It's a long time to be in jail for this young person for an accident. Not to say she doesn't deserve it, but to call that a pass, at this point, you got to be squirming in your seat if you're Hannah Gutierrez.
I did not hear you take accountability in your allocution. You said you were sorry. You were sorry, but not you were sorry for what you did. You were sorry for it and hope they can find peace. It was your attorney that had to tell the court that you were remorseful. The word remorse, a deep regret coming from a sense of guilt for past wrongs. That's not you.
I do have a problem when judges hammer too hard on defendants for not admitting they're guilty when they have an appeal and maintain their innocence. So again, I think there is a fine line and a way that you can do it and we've seen it, where they direct certain comments to the judge, letting the judge know like they're maintaining their rights. So I do think that there are parts of that.
You're hereby sentenced as follows. Stand. I'm sentencing you to 18 months of incarceration at a New Mexico Women's Correctional Facility.
18 months incarceration in prison. No passes, no county, no you get out now, and just as long as you don't violate probation, everything's fine. The harshest and maximum sentence you can get. Now, we shouldn't be surprised because we just saw the Crumbleys, right? With a much harsher max sentence, 10 to 15 years. And what did they get? The max. 10 to 15 years. Each. For their negligence that caused the loss of life. Multiple lives in their situation.
I find that what you did constitutes a serious violent offense.
So what she did constitutes a serious violent offense. So max 18 months, prison, serious violent offense, serving 85%. I mean, that's literally everything. Literally the definition of throwing the book at her.
I'm sentencing you to 18 months of incarceration at a New Mexico Women's Correctional Facility. I find that what you did constitutes a serious violent offense. It was committed in a physically violent manner, a fatal gunshot done with your recklessness in the face of knowledge that your acts were reasonably likely to result in serious harm. You were the armorer, the one that stood between a safe weapon and a weapon that could kill someone. You alone turned a safe weapon into a lethal weapon. But for you, Miss Hutchins would be alive, a husband would have his partner, and a little boy would have his mother. Please take her.
But for you, husband would have his wife, parents would have their daughter, son would have his mom. Hammering her, literally hammering her, and then immediately say taking her away. So, as we always talk about in sentencing, do we think the judge knew what the sentence was going to be before she showed up today? I believe the answer is yes. I believe this judge may have known what her sentence was going to be at trial. I think that she put her directly in jail post-trial, which was surprising to me because she knew she was going to be there for 18 months. And the decision had already been made because she determined based on the facts that she agreed with the jury and in her discretion was going to hit her for the max. That's the indications I'm getting here. Bay Photo said, if you're on Alec Baldwin's legal defense team, what are you thinking right now? What are you planning? This would not affect my strategy at all. I assume they're going to try to throw the book at Alec Baldwin. They're going to try to hit him as hard as they can. When you're looking at only 18 months, and I say only, I realize I don't want to go to prison for 18 months, but 18 months max, they're not going to go, if they were going to go lenient and offer him 6 months, they'd do that as part of a plea deal. Not to say that he would take it, but if it was just going to be probation and what Hannah Gutierrez was asking for, that's a pretty good plea offer. I think the only thing Alec Baldwin learned is this judge is probably going to hammer him with the max if he does get convicted. Lisa said, totally agree. She shouldn't be expected to admit guilt / apologize. She's appealing. The way you said her modeling career almost made me fall over. I didn't mean to say it any certain way like that. I was just saying it's really eye-rolly to be talking about stuff like that after, what happened here, what the results of her actions were. Michelle, by accident or by negligence, killing another human being would mentally wreck a healthy person. This girl does not care. She's emotionally broken. I mean, I agree that it would be impossible to feel any sense of normalcy again, knowing that your actions caused death. And I've represented clients who were not even at fault in car accidents, but somebody died in their car, or even the at-fault party died. And the toll that it takes on them, the therapy they need to go to, is very serious. Because to have any involvement, right or wrong, even with no criminal conviction, is very difficult to deal with.
I'm going to ask the deputies to watch how the courtroom gets cleared. Please do an order of remand to the transport order to the Department of Corrections and the judgment and sentence.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. We are in recess.
All rise.
All right. So that's it for the actual video. Churchy said, Peter, I believe the prosecutor stated that Baldwin was offered the same deal as Dave Hall and he turned it down. I think the original prosecutor said that. I'm not positive, but I do think the original prosecutors did offer something like that with Baldwin. Nikki said, Peter, hope you are planning on coming to Orlando for Sarah Boone. Yes, I am. I will be in attendance for some days for law school evaluating prosecution and defense arguments. That's awesome, Nikki. Hopefully we see each other and cross paths there. Peter, will you cover the press conference that came right after? Yes, if I can find it. John, maybe we're going to push the, what's it called? If I can find the press conference. I didn't know about this. Let's see. Is it on Law and Crime at the end? It's not on Law and Crime. Let's see. I'm not seeing a press conference here. I'll give it another minute here. So I will also tell you that right after this video, in about 2 or 3 minutes, we are going to redirect to my reaction to Recovery Addict's video of the judge walking out of the courtroom. Usually I try to go easy on people. I try not to be real wild because I like to give grace. I feel bad. It's a stressful situation with trials, but I couldn't really hold back on this judge. So be ready for a bit of a spicy Peter when it comes to that. I don't see any of the press conferences here. Dr. Sue said, I think the jail calls made a huge difference in the sentence. I agree there. And Kim, welcome as a new member. Make sure you guys hit the like button if you haven't already. But yeah, the next video you're not going to want to miss. It's a little bit of a different feel than most of the videos because I was really appalled when that was happening. Really, really appalled when that was happening. So hit the like button on this one and hit the like button right when you get redirected into the next one. I will try to get into the comment section as well there. You guys are the best, literally. You make this so educational and enjoyable, even when they're really difficult cases. I always feel like I'm learning a lot. Daybreak, how much of the 18 months do you think she'll actually serve? 85%, minus 1 month. So she's already served 1 month. And she'll serve 85% of the rest, the 17 months. Okay. I'll look for that. I'll look for that press conference and maybe we can do it on another video. Make sure you guys let me know what you want to hear, what you want to see, sending me clips and stuff like that from Recovery Addict, the judge walking out of the courtroom while the lawyer's still talking. Make sure you're sending that stuff to me so I can be breaking down what you guys want to hear most. But for tonight's stream, that's all we got. I'm out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the lawyer you know.